Okay, it's being streamed right now. All right, let's talk about revision controls. And if you in organization are part of the team that provides construction administration services and support the pre-construction activities on the field, then this might be something that you routinely, it's an activity that you routinely do as part of your tasks. And I'm going to explain, you probably, for those who've been doing Revit, you probably know the basics of doing revisions. I'm going to review the concept for those who haven't, so bear with me. And then I'm going to jump into Autodesk docs and the latest set of reviews online. Okay, so I opened this file. Oh, the wrong one. This is the one. I'm in Revit 2021, and I opened the architectural Autobahn dash underscore architecture. And I'm just going to open any floor. I'm going to open the first floor dimensions. This is the construction plan that display all the dimensions. And reviewing the project is an activity that is part of a quality control, a schedule that needs to be taken into consideration when doing a Revit project. You might agree with me that revisions and clouds could take any place throughout the design cycle, but legally those revisions are binding right after they're issued for approval with the agency, and therefore any modification after it's been approved by the agencies needs to be tracked via a system of clouds. And it will highlight its revision is used when enabling RFI processes or executing change orders from the client or executing bulletins or architectural supplemental instructions. And those revisions can be scheduled and tracked in Revit. So the revision controls are under the Manage tab. They're going to the View tab, and they're under the Sheet Composition set of tools. You're going to find the Revisions tool. And the Revisions dialog box is what you see on the screen. Again, go to open the architectural file, Autobahn dash architectural, go to the View tab, and open the Revisions dialog box. This is the sheet issues and revision, and it's a tabular display of information about revision controls. One of the first things you need to decide in your project is whether the sequence of your numbering, of your revision numbering, needs to be per project or per sheet. And what that means is that if it's per project, it means that there is a unique numeric identifier assigned to a revision, and that number is consistent from sheet to sheet. Not all the sheets are going to have revisions, but those who have it are going to have a consistent set of numbers across the entire set. And then another set of setup, it's numbering by sheet. I see this being used a little less, but again, this is a strategy in which every sheet follows an independent sequence, numerical sequence, based on the order in which the revision appear on the sheet. And so there are advantages and disadvantages on both methods. None of them has its pros and cons. For the most part, I see that the numbering per project, it's prevalent, but I have worked in projects as well where numbering per sheet is also been applied. In this particular project, the sequence is set up per project. And so there's the numerical sequence. It's the order in which the revision clouds are prioritized. Obviously, there is for every sequence, there is a revision number. The revision number is the identification of a set of revisions and a particular quality control stage. And it can be either numeric, like it's right now. And if numeric, it follows a numerical sequence, incremental sequence. Or it could be alphanumeric. And when you switch to alphanumeric, then you have access to the full alphabet. The alphanumeric options and sequence is something that you can customize using these numbering options. So if your project decide to use numeric revisions, which I think is the standard, then you can open the numeric options and customize the sequence starting number if you want it. Or you can also apply additional characters associated with the number. For example, sometimes maybe there's a phase one, or maybe there is this is the result of a bulletin, or you have RFI, then you could add those into the sequence. You can also have the ability to include or exclude certain values from the sequence. For example, it's customary that revision I and O are excluded from a revision sequence because they can be confused with 1 and 0. And in addition, you can add your own characters here. Like you can add, if your revision need to include certain type of prefixes, like S1, for example, or ASI 1, that is a sequence, and you can customize them as needed in this dialog box. Now this is going to be a sequence, right? So every sequence row that we create or add into the sheet revisions dialog box is going to force the next sequence to display in the order of the rows. So I'm going to cancel here and return. And then, so going into the parameters that are part of the revision control, in addition to the sequence, is the revision number, the formatting of that revision number, the date. The date is it's typically text. You can choose to use the format of text that best suit your project, but just remain consistent. Like you can do month, day, and year, or you can just leave it as month and year, or spell out the whole year. Ideally, it's one of those things that you have standardized in your production standards. And there's a description of what the revisions look like. This is a short one-sentence description of what is the revision in response to. Sometimes it's in response of changes in the original contract documents, bulletins, ASIs, etc., or a response of an RFI. I'm going to jump to the very last one, which is the show. Show, it's a column that enable that sequence to display clouds and tags. the cloud, it's a cloud revision. And the tag is typically that triangle tag that identify what revision number the cloud belongs to. But you can selectively force a sequence not to display clouds, in which case it's equivalent of freezing the tags across all the sheets in the projects. Or you can choose to display that sequence only with a tag, in which case the cloud is frozen across all the views and sheets, but the little triangle tag remain on the views. Or you can display not to show anything. So, or display both. So in this particular example, there are all the revision sequences display clouds and tags. So issue 2 and issue by. Issue 2 is who's the recipient of the revision. Usually you describe the agency. I mean, this parameter is less used in revision schedules. And issue by is who's the owner of that revision. That's usually an acronym of your company or your name. This column that says issues displays all these different checkboxes. When one of these is selected, then it basically lock all the clouds and tag in place. It prevents the user from making changes or assigning new clouds to that sequence designation. And it also preserves the integrity of the clouds that were issued on a particular timestamp. So this is important because, a lot we're talking about legal compromises. And so if something is sent to an agency, we want to make sure that all the clouds and revisions assigned to that agency remain in place. Right after you print those, you can lock in place the cloud and tags by clicking this checkbox, and that in turn is going to grade out the values on the date and the description, meaning that users cannot make changes to those. So how we create additional revisions? Let's say we're in the process of creating a new bulletin. So you click this button, this can add a new revision. This create a new sequence. Let's say that this is a revision from a month ago, so 10/01/21, and add a description. And enable the ability to create clouds and tags. Then you hit OK, and then that definition is ready to be used and assigned as clouds and tags. I'm going to go back to the revisions dialog box just to tell you that the order of the sequences can change if you use this move up and move down button. This allow a certain collection of clouds and tags to be repositioned in the sequences, in the sequence order. So if I go up, for example, then I'm moving this bulletin at a higher revision sequence, or I can move it down.
So does that change your revision symbol throughout the drawing? Then if I had, the bulletin has 6, now it's 3, are all those tags changed and all the other tags have all changed also?
That is correct.
Oh, that's dangerous.
It's dangerous. Because the revision number, here is display. This is the information that gets tagged inside the triangles. And so I don't think moving up and down the revisions sequences does any good. But it's yeah.
It's good to know you can do it, but you've got to be really careful.
Yeah, you got to have a purpose for it. And I'm trying to think when that might be. I don't know. So I'm gonna.
So sometimes when we're submitting to municipalities, they require like all the revisions and they want to see 1, 2, and 3. If you just give them 3, it's not enough. So if we're internally issuing revisions to a contractor, but now we want to issue, the difficulty is that in reality, we want to couple them all to the submission to the city. A lot of municipalities are now requiring any changes to be submitted to them for review again. So we might have, sometimes in the past, we'd have up to 20 revision symbols or deltas. And then in reality for the city, we only want 3. So this is a tricky thing that we have to start thinking about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think one of the challenges around Revit is it has limited built-in capabilities to support parallel lines of revisions. Say you submit to the city and then you have another submission to, I don't know, environmental agency. And these parallel tracks needs to be tracked separately. And there may be an issue 1 for one agency and issue 1 for another agency. Yet you want to keep those in parallel. The revision number has the limitation that you can't duplicate revision numbers. Like you can only have one revision number 1, or you cannot have 2. And what some teams opt doing, which is a workaround, it's to change the revision tag, and instead of reporting the revision numbers, they report one of these bogus parameters, which is just plain text. And this, you can have multiple sequences. And so rather than tagging the revision number, you tag the issue to, because it's a parameter that's rarely used in revision controls.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that's a modification that you could do in the tag itself, in the tag family. Okay. So let me show you quickly. Well, let me show you quickly how we can start creating revisions. There's another one here that it's a little like misplaced parameter. Like this arc length is the printed value of the maximum size of a cloud segment. And so if you think your clouds are too small or too narrow, you can increase the size of those. And let's do one. So I'm on the floor dimensions plan, and notice there are some clouds in place. When you select these clouds, these are the parameters of the cloud. The cloud by default has the revision sequencing belongs to, the ID of that revision number, the date, issue to and issue by, and all of these are sort of like key schedules, because this is the key and the key drive the value of the other ones. So in other words, the sequence is the key that define the value of the rest of the parameters based on the revisions dialog box. There's a couple of additional parameters. One is called mark and the other one is comments. This is a couple of extra parameters in addition to this, 4 ones, where you can include things like a description of what this comment is about, or the context of this comment. A lot of project teams use the comment parameter to create revision narratives that can be part of a schedule, and then the schedule can be exported into an Excel format that can be used to submit reports to the agencies, or to create response to comments from the city. the mark, it's an additional parameter as well, which is open to report any type of tech alphanumerical value. And for example, if you don't want to modify the revision number, but you want to like add things like this is RFI number 1, you could include like the RFI there, and then explain the RFI identification in the mark, and then an explanation of what it is. Change in the layout angle. None of these values are going to be part of the tagging per se, but you can use it as a way to record additional information that can be exported as narratives. Does that make sense? All right. So I was talking about creating a cloud. So when you create a new cloud, which is under the annotate, I believe. Where are you tag? Where is my cloud tool? Annotate. Oh, here is revision cloud. Annotate the revision cloud. When you switch to, let's say I'm going to make a new comment to this connection here. And when you start to start the command again, identify the area where you want to create a cloud. Then go to the annotate tab, and then go to the revision cloud. And you're presented with the draw tools. You can create a straight line of segments, or you can create a rectangle, or you can create arcs, circles, or polygons. You can include an offset, which is like from the points that you click on the screen, offset a positive or a negative direction from that point. Positive is away from the text from the point, negative is inside the text. And the easiest way of creating one is using a rectangle. Now, this is what I was talking to you. This is a cloud. And the size of a cloud segment is defined by, I'm just gonna highlight it here. Like the big arc and the small arc, this is a arc segment. And then the printed side of this arc, it's defined in that global setting that I just showed you earlier. So under the view tab, revisions, this distance of 3.5, is this distance from here to here. So that's 3.5. And so if this is too big, you can always go back and change it. Or if you don't like that. One of the things that it's been a long-standing request in Revit is the ability to create just the same arc instead of like a big arc and small arc. That is a limitation of the tool. Apparently, you know, clouds that are just the single size are not yet available. They're available in other tools, but not in this revision control. Now, keep in mind that this is an annotation object, so it scales up and down according to the view. So I'm placing this this cloud on the view, and then when I change it to something else, this is an 1/8. Let's say I'm doing a 1/4. is going to change the size of, oh, it doesn't change the, is this a sheet or, oh, it didn't change it. My bad. It doesn't adjust to the changes in scale. I'm going to return to the original scale. So if I need to change the size of this, I need to change the global settings. So under the view tab, revisions, I'm going to make it half of this size. I'm going to do 1.5. Apply. Okay. And then when I create a new one, architecture annotate. Now this doesn't look like did anything.
Are you on the right? Did you change the right revision?
Oh, you're right. I go to the
And half of 3.5 is 1 3/4.
so this is part of the no, this should be a global setting. It's not sequence specific. So let's see if I make this 3/4 of an inch. And this is part of annotate revision cloud. It does look different in size, but it looks bigger rather than small. Strange. Oh, maybe it's the units.
It looks like the secondary curve is changing dimension, but then you see how there's like one big one, and here there are smaller ones. Why don't you try to do another square of the same size and see how it relates?
Let's see. Revision cloud, rectangle.
No, just do a small square like the one you did, the very first one, to see how the one in the corner, yeah, that one, and then you can see if it's actually, yeah. So you're getting different small sizes, and yeah, and the big ones are smaller also. So, but I'm not really understanding what the relationship is when you say 3.
You're right. Yeah, so I think,
Is there a proportional relationship to the big arc and the small arc? What is the distance from the end of the big arc to the end of the small arc? That seems like that's changing in dimension. Yeah, from there to there is 5 feet, which doesn't make sense. But
well, that's
maybe what about the actual diameter of the big arc? Is that 3.5 inches? That seems like it makes sense. The big arc down there, what is that diameter? No, that's or what's it? Yeah.
Well, the distance is about 1.6 for the one, and the other is like 4 feet.
And that was 3.5 inches.
And that was 3.5 inches. But remember that
maybe it's the arc length. Maybe it's actual the physical length of that arc is 3.5 inches, and when you change it, it limits the large arc and then does a smaller arc at some proportion. That's how I would write it.
Yeah.
Also, you're in a view and not in a sheet.
Yeah.
If you're in an actual sheet, then the 3.5 is actual like real size.
Yeah. The clouds when placed on views are impacted by the scale of the view.
Right. So what he's saying is they're actually 1-to-1. So even though we're measuring them in the floor plan, they're actually being, when the actual 1.5 or 3 is per the sheet, which is 1-to-1.
And there's also, if you draw it as just a single line and not a rectangle, you will get multiple sizes of large and small arcs. It will actually, yeah, if you shorten it, see it changes. The max size is 3.5.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So it's up to a maximum.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks like the little one stays constant.
I think it's a ratio, maybe.
Yeah, ratio of the
Right.
the ultimate big one. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's sort of like scales across. Yeah, you see both of them are proportionally scaled. And then when it gets to a maximum size, it just redistribute itself. So maybe the math is doing its a maximum size off. And then it just do an equal distribution of segments to a maximum of 3.5 side.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good input. Good discussion. All right. So when a cloud is created, by default, Revit remembers the last sequence in which it was created. So I'm going to create this here, and notice how immediately Revit assigned this to sequence 2, because that was in Revit memory, the last sequence in which we placed clouds. So if I want to move this cloud from one sequence to another, it's just a matter of changing the revision parameter. So this is a bulletin 6. If I create another one, notice how it now remembers that sequence 6 is the latest one, and it will continue creating clouds associated with that sequence. To tag the clouds, you just go on the annotate tab and then tag by category. Just select the cloud, and it's automatically going to report the number sequence. The tags may or may not have a leader. You can disable the leader in the revisions instance properties, revision tag instance property. And then it just remain like that. I mean, I work with architects or principals who say, oh, you just never put a line, you just move the tag so it touches the cloud. I think as long as there is a consistent rule, then that works for me. Notice also, I mean, to move a cloud, you click the plus, a tag, just click the plus sign to relocate it. Again, the revision tag is only reporting the information contained by the cloud. And so if the cloud changes sequence, so I'm going to change this to bulletin 6, then the number automatically updates. The revision tag, like I mentioned earlier, could be modified to support some workarounds when dealing with multiple parallel revision sequences. And so what I mentioned earlier is that one of the things you can do if you want to use that is to add the family and swap the reporting label inside the parameter. So right now, I open this family via right click. You select it and hit edit family, or you can right click and edit the family as well. And in the tag, you can select the label and swap it with a different value. So instead of reporting the revision number, if you want the mark to be part of that, you can also include that. And so sometimes the mark it's part of the information that contractors want to see on the field. Again, this is a project setting. If you want that to be part of then you can include, a little description there as well. I'm just going to load it into the project, override the parameters, and obviously I need to work on the alignment. But this cloud, if this cloud has a mark value, then it will be reported in the tag as well. Very good. Again, this is an option if you're doing construction administration to include that as part of the tag. Where to place clouds? There is no real consensus in the industry. Some the manager says that they should be placed on the view because then it can be incidentally move around and it remains attached with the original location of the area where that's describing. Other line of thought is to put everything on the sheet. And what I mean by sheet is you open a sheet and then you place the clouds in the sheet. I think the argument for that is that it allows for a consistent placement of clouds inside in a sheet, and that they're easier to manage that way. But I mean, you can argue both ways. There was a survey that I saw maybe about 5-6 years ago, where they were asking, what's your preferred method of placing clouds, and they were equally divided. I think it was 52 versus 48. Some were saying on the sheet, some were saying on the view. I'm pretty open to that. I think as long as it's consistent and we don't mix and match them, then it'll be easier for users to navigate across them. My preference is to place them in views so that because when you place it on sheets, there's this again, like I said, the danger that there's a displacement between the view and the area of work, and the cloud may be orphaned or not directing at anything. It's equivalent of putting them in paper space or model space in AutoCAD. And I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of consistency. I don't know. You guys agree? Do you have any preference, or Jeff? Do you have any preference on your end?
We tend to do it on sheets mostly.
Okay.
Because we also don't revise every sheet. We do, we do it by per sheet, not per project.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think as long as there's consistency, that's probably the.
And that probably just comes from old school doing it in paper space.
Yeah.
For bazillion years.
I hear you. Okay. So let's talk about. So I talk about how to move clouds from one sequence to another sequence, how you can customize the tag to report additional fields or additional label or pieces of parameters. Let's talk about how to report revision schedules inside a title box. And so I'm going to open a sheet. I randomly pick these partition types. And And notice that these partition types, does it have a revision schedule? I don't know if it has a revision schedule. Let's pick another one. The dimension plans. Yeah, there is a revision schedule embedded inside the title block. You can see that it's poorly formatted. But let me talk about that. Let's see how we can enable or customize the revision schedules inside title blocks. The title block, again, it's one of the first pieces of information that you standardize in your company, and hopefully you have your own set of title blocks. And one of the properties of the title block is the ability to host revision schedules. And so I open this sheet A1 DIMS, the first floor, and I'm gonna edit the family that's called DG30x42 CDs. This is the name of the title block for this particular company. When I edit the family, I have access to all the labels inside the family. These are title block parameters that are reporting parameter values of the sheet type, the view type, the view category, sheet categories, and the revision categories. And so at any point you can swap a parameter or add a label in your title block that's associated with revisions. So in addition to that, notice it's not very conspicuous, but there is something called a schedule graphics. And schedule graphic, it's a placeholder of the revision schedule. And so it only has two parameters. I can see two columns. You can see that little arrow pointing down. That's the control of the schedule that defines the width of the table. And you can stretch the size of the revisions by changing or dragging in or out the horizontal location of this control. Now, this schedule graphic, if you hit this, you hit it down and switch to the sheets, then you have access to information about, this is sheet information on the project. This is information about the title block, and this is an instance parameter of the schedule graphics. Let me see. If you double click that schedule, it opens up something called the revision schedule. Let me do it again. I am in the title block, and then I discover something called the schedule graphics. And if you double click that schedule graphic, it's going to open a schedule of revision. This is called revision schedule 2. Which behaves exactly like you would expect from a schedule. It's just a schedule of revision parameter of the revision category. Now, to access the value of this revision, make sure you swap this drop down from family to schedule. And when you do that, you have access to the schedule of revisions parameter. In fact, if you click fields here, this tells you that this piece of schedule only has three parameters. You can schedule. This has the date, the description, and the sequence. The sequence, I don't know what's doing here. Maybe I'm just move this away. Oh no, the date. No, that seems reasonable. the sequence, the date, the description, and the sequence. But maybe the sequence is the first one that needs to be reported. So I'm going to move that to the very top. So we start with the sequence, then we go into the date, then we go to the description. You can also include the revision number. So the number and the sequence are two parameters. The sequence, it's the order of every row in the dialog box, in the revision dialog box. And the revision number is the alphanumerical or the numerical value associated with that sequence. So I think the schedule is a little odd. I don't know why it's reporting the sequence. I'm going to move the sequence out, and then I'm going to move the revision number in by clicking these toggles, red toggles or green toggles to add the sequence, and then use these move tools to place the sequence in the appropriate order. So in addition to revisions, you can also add project information. This is rarely done. But if you notice, the schedule of revisions only have 6 parameters. And so revisions, the revision category, you cannot add, cannot receive new parameters. This is one of those categories where you cannot create custom parameters. If you notice the dialog box, it doesn't allow me to create shared parameters or a project parameters associated with that category. So it's one of those categories that by default or by definition, they can only have these 6 parameters as part of the schedule. So that's it. That's all you can do. And so I modified the schedule to report the number, the date, and the description. In the sorting and grouping, they are sorted by date. You can also sort it by number. And then that is going to allocate the row information in the appropriate place based on that number. You can change the formatting and the appearance of that schedule. For example, notice how the grid lines were switched off because this checkbox are disabled. So I am just going to leave it like that and then hit OK. I notice that now I have 3 pieces of information in the schedule. In the I'm going to close it, and then notice now that my schedule, instead of having 2 parameters before, now I have 3 parameters, and I'm just going to resize them a little bit. So remember, this is the sequence number, this is the date, and that's the description. And the sequence, the number, it's numerical, so that's going to be a smaller space, the date, and the description. If the schedule falls too short, if the description doesn't fit here, then it's going to create an indent. And I think that's what happened before. I can also get into the schedule and change the font. Again, to open it, again, just double click it. And if I want this to have a smaller font or a different font, open the schedule revision, access the properties of the schedule in this drop-down list, and then edit, go to the formatting, no, go into the appearance, and instead of using, the body text that's called schedule text 6, you can use the 330 seconds typical height. for the body text. Again, these are the families of text loaded into this family. And I'm just going to change this to 330 seconds for the body. Notice that the title of the text and the header of the text are switched off. This checkbox are disabled. So that's what's happening with the schedule. That's why it doesn't display any column head, and it doesn't display the name of the schedule per se. And then I'm going to hit OK here. And then let's go back to the family, and then I'm going to load this family into the project, override it, and I think this schedule looks much better in this format that it was before. Does that make sense? So it's all about editing the title block and adding a schedule graphics. So if you never created this before, and if you're in the process of creating a new title block, make sure that you add you create a schedule of revision inside your family, and that you place that on top of the family. So how that works, like I'm going to open again this family and edit the family. And let's say you're creating a new title block from scratch, and you don't know how to add that schedule of revisions here. So if you look at the properties of the title block, under the views, there are two schedules. One's called revision schedule, and the other is revision schedule 2. The one that's getting reported, it's the one that's called it's the schedule revision 2, which when you open it, you can see that's the head here. Well, let's say you have another schedule. This is the revision schedule. To create a schedule like that, you go to the View tab, and then you create a new revision schedule. And it's like creating a new schedule from scratch. Let's say for some reason, I just want to display the sequence and the date. And then this particular one, I'm just going to call this a sample schedule. You do that under the formatting, or you can also rename the schedule in the list of views here. This created this revision number 3, which has when you look at the fields, it has the sequence and the revision date as parameters. It uses the revision sequence as a sorting mechanism. And the reason it doesn't report it, it's not visible here, is because you say it says a hidden field. So if you display this checkbox, then the new parameter will be seen. So I think I made this one. This is the sequence. And that's how you create a new revision schedule from scratch inside the title block. And now if I need this information to be displayed somewhere in the project, just drag it and drop it. This is the new schedule I created from scratch. I could choose to not display the column name. And then you load into the project, and now override it. And I have a schedule with 2 revision sequences. They have different formats, but this was just so that you understand how you can put one together from scratch. Okay, this is a schedule of revision. So another thing it's important when you're doing revision schedules is that when you format the fields, make sure always that you itemize every instance. If you disable that, some of those rows may not display. All right, so that's how the revisions and revision schedule work in TitleBox. The information contained or reported by the title block, it's information available to you in the sheet properties. So if you select the title block inside a sheet, I'm gonna bring this here at the front. Again, select the title block of a sheet. You can see that this is information about the sheet. And this information includes the sheet issue date, date stamps, sheet name, sheet number. This information is something that you can edit directly into the instance properties and change it. But these are parameters that impact how information is displayed on the title block. Likewise, and these are displayed only when you select them. Likewise, if you escape and just display the properties of the sheet, and as you scroll down, there is one parameter that is particular for this revision control, and that is called revisions on sheet. Again, this is a property of the sheet. So in order to display, just open any sheet. Don't select anything on the screen. And then scroll down on the first set of revisions and access the revision sheets. And so there are two things here. When you click on these revision sheets, it displays for you all the revision sequences in the project. And then it highlights for you the ones that are reported, that Revit is reporting, because Revit detect that there are clouds associated with those revisions. So on sequence number 2 and on sequence number 6, notice how this checkbox is enabled and it's grayed out, because this is what this is telling you. So Revit has detected in the view clouds that are associated with that sequence, and it's forcing it to display. And you cannot disable them. Like, you cannot disable the visibility. The only way to disable that is to actually deleting all the clouds in the view that are part of that sequence, which is not a good idea, right? But the title block, the revision title blocks, is always going to report clouds that are visible in the view. If you want to force the schedule to include revision numbers or revision sequences that do not necessarily display clouds, you can add those as checkboxes here. So in this case, I'm forcing sequence 3, 4, and 5 to display in the schedule, even though there are no clouds in that title block. So when I hit OK here, notice now my schedule grew in size. It's reporting additional revisions, even though there are no clouds in here. I guess sometimes teams choose to do this because, you know, the revision includes a reissue of the entire set, and I just want to make sure that, you know, that is recorded. But again, you can choose to enable or disable the visibility of those using this checkboxes in the properties of the sheet. Now, if you really want to make sure that bulletin 1 is not part of this, then what you could do is, let's see, delete all the clouds associated with bulletin 1. And I can recall it's all of this are associated with bulletin 1. Let me see. I'm going to double click to access the view. And these are all bulletins 6 sequences. And so I think this one is also 6, and this is also 6. So I have 3 clouds that were part of sequence 6. If you delete them, then there's no more sequence 6 clouds. And notice how the schedule remove those clouds or that sequence from the schedule. I'm going to undo to retrieve this cloud. This is revision part of sequence 6. If I change the sequence, let's say I make it part of FC4, that's a new sequence in the sheet. And then the title block is going to report that new sequence, FC4, as part of the sheet. Now, another thing you can do if you don't want to delete this is to freeze it. I mean, if I hide in view this cloud, notice how the revision in the schedule also do not display. So one strategy, if you don't want certain revision to display in the view, you can hide those revision clouds. Now the drawback is to discover those clouds is a little tricky. I mean, once you hide it, how would you know, or how would you let a user know that the cloud is hidden? So the only way to know it, I think, it's to use this temporary reveal hidden element, which I think it will display the cloud. Yeah, you see there is a cloud here. These are all the elements in the view that are frozen. And this cloud has been frozen, and saying now you unhide it. And as soon as you unhide it, it's visible in the view. It's registered by the sheet, and it's reported by the title block. Not a great workaround again, but sometimes you really don't want one line of revisions to be visible in your schedule, and this is a workaround. Any question about this? The revisions can also be part of a schedule. I think there may be a schedule of revisions here. Let me see. No, there's none. So let's create one. Let's say I want to create a narrative of all the revisions in the project. So it's like that's the schedule of revision clouds. So you go to the View tab and create a schedule. Scale of quantities, and then the category you want to pick is the I thought there was a I don't see the category, so maybe it's not here. Oh, it's maybe a view list. No, there's not a view list. This is a schedule of sheets, but that doesn't display the revision. Yeah, I have to get back to you on that one. How to schedule clouds. Maybe it's not possible. I remember doing it in my previous firm, but we were using an add-in to expose those parameters. I think it was called RTV tools, which has expand the capabilities of revisions. RTV tools revisions. Yeah, this was the one I used in the past. It creates a schedule of all the revisions in the project and a schedule of clouds. Yeah, and I think that's one of the values of this. This is the schedule of revisions, and then it provides like a more friendly user interface to sell in a single user interface, assign revisions to different sheets in a way that it's a little more friendly for architects. So again, the name of this tool, it's RTV Tools. It's a good bang for the buck. I don't think it's an expensive one. And we use this plugin a lot to create narratives that were demanded by the owner as part of the deliverables after construction, after the CD set. Okay, let me, any question here on revisions? Oh, there's one here from Melissa. Is there a way to include the triangle in the schedule? No, Revit schedules don't support graphics except on the headers. So I think in the headers you can embed a graphic, but I don't think you can embed it on every cell. Unfortunately.
Caesar.
Yeah.
If you go to the schedules and you do the sheet list and you do the one that says revision number and add the ones that say current revision, revision date, description, it will make a schedule.
Yeah, but that's a revision of that's a schedule of the sheets, right? So this is every sheet and the revision associated
Is that
with.
what that makes?
Yeah. And what I was trying to do is a schedule of the clouds, for example, or not
Right.
the clouds. These are all the sheets in the project and what is reporting.
I see.
Couldn't you then do it that if a sheet didn't have anything reporting, it doesn't use that line, so it would just be the sheets that have revisions on them?
Yeah, you can sort that out. Let me see. I'm gonna do it again. Schedule of sheets, current revisions. I'm gonna add all these current revisions to the, and then you can just say sort this information based on value. You can say, I only want the ones that are on number 3. And that's all your sheets that whose current revision has 3 on it. Or let's do another one. Equals 5. There's only one.
You do 3, 4, 5,
A multiple.
just to allow you to.
No, as far as the filter information.
Yeah, under equals,
okay.
or how about it does not equal blank?
It would be something that says does not exist, right? Or exist. Or has
Yeah.
value. Has a value. Here is one.
Yeah.
Has a value. I guess the value is that it's empty.
That's cheating.
Or let's say the date. No, it doesn't filter it. Interesting. Filter. And none. I mean, this will give me no.
Well, if you can filter and, you could do 3 and 4 and 5, and that would give you all revisions and sheets that have revisions on it.
Let's see. But no, because I think then I think current revision is the active revision. Is not all the revision. So the current revision is the newest revision in a sheet.
Yeah, you need to get rid of. I bet there's a way to make it work.
Yeah.
It seems like if you have the data there, you should be able to create a sheet list that has everything that's been. And it'd be nice if it had it on the page also, but.
Yeah, and when it comes to creating a, I know a lot of you are familiar with the system of revisions where you have all your sheets and then you have your schedule of revisions over time with X's or points or dots that communicate whether a sheet was part of a deliverable or not. There are workarounds about how to do that. It's not something you can do out of the box. If I recall this correctly, I mean, you can do that in a plugin called Ideate BIM link, where you do all this, you export the data into an Excel spreadsheet, and then swap the characters or the checkboxes with dots, and then you bring that back in. I mean, that's one way of doing it with your special characters. I think I'm just going to Google it very quickly. BIM link ideate revisions schedule. Here it is. I'm not going to play it all, but this is like 13 minutes. But this is Excel spreadsheet with all your sheets, and the data is extracted from Revit, and they provide you like this little macro that transfer the revision number into a numerical value, and then you bring that into into Revit with this tool called Sticky, which is basically a way to bring Excel spreadsheets into Revit. Again, this is, I think BIMlink sold for like $600 or $700 last time I checked. But if bringing Excel files into Revit is something that you do quite often, I highly recommend it. The IDA tools, because they are really the quality and the fidelity of the Revit of the graphic properties are, it's really awesome. Like, so this one generates like a link, and every time you edit the Excel spreadsheet, it automatically updates the schedule on Revit. All right, just putting this here for your FYI, your information. Okay, it's let me just walk you into one other workflow, and this might be of interest for those of you guys using Revit LT, and this is using Autodesk Docs. So if you have used Design Collaborate for Revit, this is a tool that enable dispersed geographic teams to use the cloud as a repository of files and do live work sharing using the cloud as a central file repository instead of localized servers. And so the in 2022, BIM Design Collaboration for Revit was renamed as part of Autodesk rebranding, and now it's a module of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Yeah, I'm going to show this. It is entitlement that's based on a subscription. It's a name. It's based on individual assigning you access to this type of centralized repository of files, and it gives you access to this. It's like if you were doing a Google Drive, but instead of looking at the file per se, you have access to information about those objects. So it's like a Google Drive made for architects. And so Autodesk Docs, it's repository of files. And when you work in a cloud environment, you can upload models directly from your workstation into the cloud. And this is a project that I've been working for the past few months. And these are files that are posted by the design firm as a way to distribute and coordinate a model across disciplines. And so every discipline has its own bucket of information, and they upload aggregate information about their own field. And so Autodesk Docs, like I said, it's can be purchased individually, or it's also part of the Autodesk collection, the AEC collection. So if you purchase AEC collection, then you have access to Docs. So one of the few things that are good about Autodesk Docs and Revit LT is that if you are assigned with a license of Autodesk Docs, you have the ability to save models on the cloud. And by saving on the cloud, you also have the ability to access the review tools available to you on the cloud viewer. And so I'm going to do an example here, and I'm going to use this upgraded version of Revit 22. And I know you don't have this on your end, so this is not a hands-on exercise. So if I'm entitled with Autodesk Docs, I can have the ability to save this project as a cloud model. And what does that mean is that this file, instead of living in your localized central server, you can actually move it to the cloud and make the cloud the access point for this file. Now, this file, if you're a Revit LT user, can only be accessed by one user at a time. But you don't have to spend resources in connectivity, in building a separate infrastructure for connection, because a user can be working from home, another could be using from the office, and these dispersed geographical teams, each of them could have access to the cloud model as long as each of them has a subscription of Autodesk Docs. So let's save this to the cloud. I'm going to save this project into the cloud. So, and then you need to find what is your account name. I'm going to switch my account to a trial account that I'm working on. Choose where this model needs to be uploaded. I'm going to put it in the architectural folder. Give it a name, and then save it. So as soon as this file is saved into the cloud and you exit the file, another user who is also entitled with Autodesk Docs could be sitting in a different place of the world and as long as they have Revit LT and they have a subscription with Docs, then they can open the file directly from their workstation. Now, this is going to take a few minutes to get uploaded because of the file size. But once the model is saved on the cloud, it also opens up the opportunity to access the revision tools available in Autodesk Docs. So while this finishes loading, let me pull or uploading. Let me show you how that revision works. So something you will have access as part of a Docs subscription is access to this tool called Issues. Issues is a plugin for Revit. And I believe it's, I don't know if it's available for, I think it's available for Revit LT user. The Issues add-in is something that you download using the Autodesk desktop updates. If you install Revit the traditional way, you have access to all these different add-ins. No, you probably don't have, LT doesn't have access to this, unfortunately. I have LT here and I don't see that being prompted here. But if you're using just a regular, the standard Revit installation, then you can install Issues for Revit using this installation mechanism, or you can talk with your BIM manager. And what that does is just install this Issues tab in your Revit workstation. And what that does, it enables you to access the database of revisions available in Autodesk Docs and associate them with your Revit model. So I am going to demonstrate how you can do that. So in the cloud, I have still a few percentage to go over. In the cloud, once something is uploaded in the cloud as either a static model or a cloud model, teams can open the Autodesk viewer and use the three-dimensional capabilities of the viewer to inspect the model. When you inspect a model, you can use some of the navigation tools to orbit around, to pan, to section the view using different plane orientation. For example, if I want to create a section on the fly, I could do it directly from the user interface. I could create a box and then pull each of the faces to each of the box geometry to create this three-dimensional sectional views. And this is very quick mechanisms to override, the difficulty of navigating in Revit. I mean, Revit, for some reason, is still a heavy software, and pulling a model, you may experience some laggard in the rate of refreshment of the view. But what you see on the view, it's a lightweight model that you can pull from anywhere, and you can pull it, to show and facilitate review meetings or coordination meetings or 3D coordination sessions. But one of the things that you are entitled as a docs reviewer is the ability to create issues. And so issues, it's a database of information associated with design mishaps or construction issues that are part of the quality control process. And when you create an issue, and when you review things in Revit, you can add issues using this little button that's like a little check here. You can, for example, categorize your issue by this pre-defined list of types, revision types. If this is a design issue, then you can associate a geometry with revision. Let's say, for example, look at this, like this, the roof is not clear how you treat the access to the roof. That's an issue that I need to bring to the designer. This database has a list of metadata that is far more expanded and robust than the one you find out of Revit. You can add a description, clarify roof access. You can assign it to a specific person. I'm going to assign it to myself. You can specify a due date where you want this response back, when this is starting, what is the root cause, design efficiency. You can add additional references. These are custom files that are associated with that, and expand in comments. And then submit it. And then you hear that was my workstation receiving an email with a view to that issue. Let me switch here to my email, and notice that here on the here on this email, I receive a notification associated with the issue, associated with the model. As a recipient who's in charge of leading clearing this issue, I click on it, and this is the database of all the issues that you can discover throughout the design phase or during pre-construction or construction or RFIs. And it gives you a tool for issue management. And so multiple team members can visualize the list of issues, and you can create reports and statuses of highlighting the statuses of completion for all these different issues. And then every issue that it's part or available in the database also travels into Revit, as long as you're an Autodesk Docs user. And so here the model was saved into the cloud. And obviously I don't have LT. This is the full flush Revit. And then when I go into each, I'm going to open Autodesk Docs, navigate to where that file is, this Autobahn file. I save it under the architectural folder. Here is the Autobahn. Oh, I need to wait for this to finish processing. So what the tool is doing in the background, it's exporting the geometry into a lightweight representation that can be made visible in the viewer, and that it's a process called publishing. It's making a live document with a static representation on the cloud. And so as soon as this finishes, then I'll be able to visualize the model. Here, for example, I have access to all the sheets, and I can use the markup tools to add comments and markups to sheets. Like these markups are set in this cloud. This way of creating markups is different from the markups that you see in Revit. These markups actually don't travel into Revit, but they are, you can keep, this is like Bluebeam version of Autodesk in that you can maintain a set of documents in a cloud repository and have multiple stakeholders be assigned with a different color and change and create reviews to a set of drawings with priorities and assignments. This is our revision. So revisions, it's a list of markups. The issues is another one. I mean, I can add a new, let's say this is there's an issue in this sheet, and this is my issue number 3. Again, it's open. I'm going to assign it to myself. I'm just gonna add one comment and then submit. As soon as I hit submit, I received an email. You heard that in the background. And then I jump into my email, look at this cloud number 3, click on the screen to look at the issue. This is from the recipient end. As long as you are Autodesk Docs subscriber, then you can look at this, double click this issue and address it or display it. I mean, at the same time in Revit, I was talking about this issues plugin. And this issue plugin, which I show you how to install directly from the this Autodesk updater. In fact, 2 days ago, version 3 was just released for 21 and 22. This open revision panel. And let me reload and see. This is now connecting to the list of revisions on the cloud from Autodesk Docs. And I think it's not coming up because the the file hasn't been finished getting published. And so where was it here? Let's see here. This is Audubon. Yeah. I'm going to add one in 3D and maybe that works. Here's the 3D version of the Audubon on the file on the cloud. I'm going to add an issue about, let's say, these columns. And review the issue. I don't have issue 4 here. I don't understand what's going on. Add and design issue here. Oh, there you go. Now I created. I don't know what happened before. I assigned it to myself. Or you can assign it to multiple. You can assign to multiple watchers as well. And then I received that email in the background. As a recipient, you click the link, you open the file. It will open the list of the documents. And technically in Revit, this list of issues should travel automatically here. Oh, there you go. You see it, this issue 4. So you can double click it and it will display the same view that it's on the cloud. It will transfer it into Revit, or it will transfer the camera view from the cloud into Revit, so that you can actually have your to-do list at the same time as you edit things on the cloud. And now that you have that push pin in the model, you can decide what to do next. You can decide to work on the model or craft a response. The response can be documented in the comments. All the activity log, it's something you can export as comma separated values. And then you can change this to pending in review or close. If you think it's closed, then you should close it. This automatically updates the database on the cloud. And that workflow, I think is the latest things of things we're doing with cloud solutions. And notice how the dot changed color from yellow to blue. And if I reload this, then issue 4 should be closed. You see here, so it's closed. And so this connection between a cloud-based repository of revisions, that it's three-dimensional, that it's lightweight, that it's accessible to all team members on the cloud, on the project, on dispersed geographically teams. It's part of the latest way of reviewing and revising projects. So any question about this new tool? Obviously, I wish I could give each of you access to Autodesk Docs. I don't have that ability, but I just wanted to put this in front of you so that you're aware what else could be done besides the standard revision tools you see in Revit. Okay, so that's all I have for today. Any other comment or questions, reactions? Next Thursday, I'm going to talk about BIM management. If you're a BIM manager, if you are a manager, how does things on BIM impact your work, or what are activities related to BIM managers that you need to be on top of as somebody who manage a project? I think that's part of the discussion next time. And so again, if you want to stick around for one-on-ones, please just let me know. So feel free to save this file and close it. And maybe there are no questions, then let's meet again next Thursday. And have everyone a great night.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, Jeff. Bye. See you later, Shushan.